Imagine finding a piece of physical evidence that proves someone committed murder with a 1 in a billion certainty. Like, it is as close to absolute, undeniable scientific truth as humanly possible.
Right. The absolute holy grail for a prosecutor.
Exactly. But now, imagine the Supreme Court looking at that exact evidence and just deciding, it's not good enough to bring a suspect back to trial.
Which is just wild to think about.
It is completely wild. And today we are taking a custom deep dive into the murky waters of the Dutch criminal justice system, all based on the stack of research you sent us.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating stack.
It really is. Usually when we talk about finding the truth, right, like a
Yeah.
medical diagnosis or, I don't know, fixing a car engine, you expect precision. You break your arm, the x-ray shows this jagged white line, and the doctor just points to it as a concrete fact.
Yeah, I mean, it's a binary comfort. We inherently want the truth to be this object we can observe and hold without any ambiguity.
But when you step into the world of criminal law, that x-ray machine is often just completely broken.
Oh, totally shattered.
Right. And trying to establish the truth becomes this staggering challenge. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because the first case study in your sources perfectly highlights what happens when the legal system is forced to operate, completely in the dark without that clean x-ray line.
Yeah, this double murder mystery, it really reads like a cinematic thriller, but the actual courtroom mechanics are just profoundly bizarre.
They really are. So set the stage for us.
Right, so the foundational facts here revolve around the murders of two female employees who both worked for the bank ABN AMRO. And these incidents happen relatively close together in time in Amsterdam Zuid and Nieuw-Vennep.
And the details initially just scream conspiracy, don't they? I mean, these weren't just two random women at a massive corporation. They were direct colleagues.
Exactly, yeah. They shared an office.
Literally sitting in the same room every single day.
Yeah.
And factor in that shortly before these murders, someone violently smashed a window at the ABN AMRO headquarters. You immediately assume the bank is being targeted, right?
It's the most logical narrative through line. Any investigator would follow that. But the court has officially stated they currently see, absolutely no link between the two cases.
Wait, really? No link at all?
None. They're treating it as a horrific, localized coincidence. So, the Amsterdam trial is focused entirely on the victim's partner, a suspect the Dutch press calls Clen.
And Clen is such a fascinating, disturbing character to look at. He actually has this public profile from a stint on a reality TV dating show.
Oh yeah, with the pianist?
Right, Iris Hond. And what's striking is her visceral reaction to him back then. She found him deeply unsettling. She described him as overly complimentary in this suffocating way.
She was visibly relieved when he was kicked off the show.
Yeah. Furthermore, his public comments about what he wants in a partner, he specifically stated he requires a woman with at least, quote, a handful of breast. It paints a very grim picture.
It really establishes a baseline of a guy who heavily objectifies women, which, becomes a critical lens for the court when they look at his incredibly unorthodox behavior during the preliminary hearings.
Unorthodox is putting it mildly. He arrives looking sharp and relaxed, but his interactions with the court professionals are just alarming.
Right, so he has this defense team, a male lawyer and a female lawyer.
Yeah, and he gives the male lawyer a totally standard handshake. But for his female lawyer, he performs this strange little bow and, intimately places his hand on her shoulder.
Which is wildly inappropriate for a murder trial.
Exactly, and it gets worse. He was reportedly so flirtatious with his female psychiatrist that she actually formally documented it, especially since he's sitting in a cell accused of murdering his female partner.
Yeah, his behavior was just so far outside normal psychological bounds that the court ordered him transferred to the Peter Ban Centrum.
Which is the big deal in the Netherlands, right?
Huge deal. It's this highly specialized psychiatric observation clinic. The court isn't just asking for a standard evaluation. They need a comprehensive breakdown of how his mind works.
And they desperately need that.
Yeah.
Because the forensic evidence, the actual biological cause of death, is just a total void.
Yeah, they have essentially nothing conclusive.
The victim was found in a shallow bath with a scorching hot stream of water running over her body, 46 to 56 degrees Celsius. But the Dutch Forensics Institute cannot pinpoint how she died.
Right, there are heavy suspicions of poison, but they just haven't been able to isolate a compound.
Which gives the defense this massive strategic advantage. It's kind of like having a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, where the single piece that forms the victim's face is just missing.
That's a great way to put it. You can see the edges, but you can't declare what the picture is.
And Clen's reaction to this missing piece is to just shut down entirely. He exercises his right to remain silent, refuses to answer basic questions about where he was. But I have to push back on this. If your partner is dead and you are innocent, wouldn't you just scream your alibi from the rooftops?
You'd think so, yeah.
Right. Doesn't complete silence in the face of a murdered partner act as this enormous flashing neon sign of guilt?
What's fascinating here is the conflict between legal strategy and human intuition. The foundational rule is that the burden of proof rests entirely on the state.
Right.
So a defense attorney looking at a missing cause of death is going to say, hey, keep your mouth shut. If the state lacks the physical evidence to build a bridge to a conviction, the worst thing you can do is hand them the materials.
That makes sense. Structurally, sure. But the judge actually warned him. The judge explicitly told Clen that his silence on basic things, like why he didn't notice she wasn't in bed all night, was actively destroying his chances of getting out of pretrial detention.
Because judges are still human beings, you know. When a court is starved of forensic truth, they are forced to weigh behavioral truth. That's why the Peter Behan syndrome is so critical.
Because they watch everything he does.
Exactly. If he refuses to speak to the psychiatrists, they don't just give up. They observe how he interacts with the ward staff, his sleep patterns, his micro-expressions. They construct a behavioral truth to compensate for the missing forensic one.
Okay, so that perfectly illustrates how paralyzing it is when the evidence is ambiguous. But let's flip it. Based on the Tamara Wolvers case and the sources you sent, what happens when the system secures the absolute perfect piece of forensic evidence?
And then the law itself acts as a brick wall against justice.
It's so frustrating. To understand why, we need to talk about double jeopardy, right? Nebis in idem.
Right, this centuries-old protection. It dictates you cannot be tried twice for the exact same crime. If you're acquitted, the book is permanently closed. The state can't just endlessly harass you.
But in 2013, the Netherlands instituted a loophole because modern science was making that rule problematic. If prosecutors uncover a novum, like fundamentally new evidence, they can reopen a closed case.
Exactly. And the Supreme Court is facing a monumental test of this right now with the 2006 murder of Tamara Wolvers.
Yeah. A suspect, who the family knew, was fully acquitted by the highest courts. But now cold case detectives have isolated new DNA evidence pointing right at him.
But the Supreme Court isn't just rubber stamping a new trial. They've paused everything to seek unprecedented guidance from the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg.
And they are hesitating because of a really tragic precedent, the 2001 murder of an Aldi supermarket manager in Ridderkerk.
Yeah, that case is heartbreaking.
During the original trial, they found DNA under the victim's fingernails, but the tech back then only gave a 1 in 100,000 chance it belonged to the suspect. So he was acquitted.
But decades pass, the Dutch Forensic Institute re-examines that exact same swab with modern tech, and the certainty skyrockets to 1 in a billion.
Scientifically definitive. I look at this like a computer update. The hardware, the physical swab, is the same, but the software, the testing tech, got a revolutionary upgrade. Yet the Supreme Court rejected it as a novum.
Because of a strict categorical interpretation. They argued that since the concept of a DNA test was debated in the original trial, a better analysis of old material isn't legally new evidence.
For anyone listening to this, that has to be infuriating. If the tech improves to a 1 in a billion certainty, how do you mathematically justify ignoring it? It feels like legal technicalities actively protecting a murderer.
It is emotionally devastating.
The widow still runs into the acquitted man on the streets of Rotterdam. That's a horrifying failure.
It is, but legally, we're dealing with jurisdictional supremacy and the boundaries of state power. The Netherlands is bound by international treaties governing double jeopardy. They need to know if reopening cases based on upgraded tech violates human rights.
Because if the state can just drag you back to court every time a new microscope is invented, you're never actually free.
Precisely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Germany outright rejected reopening cases to prioritize the finality of a verdict.
But Finland and Ireland went the other way, right?
Yeah, they prioritized objective truth over finality. If the European Court tells the Dutch Supreme Court that upgrading DNA is a valid novum, it opens a massive floodgate for Dutch cold cases.
Like the tragic case of 11-year-old Cedric Suarez. Cold case detectives are just waiting. If Europe greenlights this, prosecutors are going to empty their desk drawers.
Oh, absolutely. And that tension between how much power the state has to hunt someone down versus when a case is closed, it plays out in reverse once someone is already behind bars.
Right. While prosecutors are fighting to get suspects back in, the system is struggling with how to handle aging kingpins who want out of maximum security.
Yeah, the ghosts of the underworld.
Which brings us to Willem Holleeder, arguably the most infamous crime boss in Dutch history. Serving life for 5 murders, he's around 70, severe heart patient, and he just won an appeal to move out of the EB invoked.
And the eBay is the extra beveiliging, the most secure, restrictive prison environment in the country. Thick glass, 0 physical contact. It's for active threats like Ridwan Taghi to ensure they can't run cartels from their cells.
But Holleeder argued to be moved to an AIT regime, intensive supervision. It's still highly controlled, but a massive step down. They can cook together, have more fluid contact. The state's justification is he's old, sick, and his network evaporated.
But that objective assessment directly collides with the subjective terror of his family. His sister, Astrid Holleeder, who risked her life to testify against him, is sounding every alarm.
She calls him a predator with infinite patience.
Exactly. She argues that even without foot soldiers, looser rules allow a manipulative sociopath to find ways to exact revenge.
How does the state Secretary of Justice balance the cold fact that an old man doesn't have a gang anymore against the very real terror of the victims?
They have to rely strictly on the architecture of the law. The EB isn't a punitive torture box, it's preventative. If intelligence says the network is dead, the legal foundation for total isolation crumbles. They have to rely on threat assessments, not fear.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The physical decay of these empires is so cinematic. It's literally the final act of a mafia movie. You have an aging Holleeder fighting his sister to cook in a communal kitchen. And on the outside, the remnants of guys like Stanley Hillis.
Stanley Hillis, another titan of the Dutch underworld. And his former hideout, this sprawling estate in Aruba, is the perfect metaphor for these fading empires.
A real estate agent listed it for around $1 million. And the history is wild. The current owners bought it for $300,000 as a squatter-infested ruin, but the footprint of Hillis's paranoia was cemented into it.
Massive, empty floor safes embedded in the concrete.
Yeah. And it was so abandoned that a herd of 40 wild goats would wander down and drink out of his decaying swimming pool.
And the most jarring detail is this massive, bolted-down steel cage in the yard. The agent said it was big enough for a panther or a tiger.
Which is totally plausible for him. His old villa in Purmerend had alpacas and a camel.
Right. But the money is gone, the goats reclaimed the pool, and the cage is empty. The state might lock up a kingpin or watch a villa crumble, but they haven't locked up the culture these men created.
That is so true, because looking at the final topic in your stack, that underworld mentality actively bled out into the open, mingling with high society.
The overlap between the criminal elite and social elite in the Netherlands is incredibly porous. They call it Pinot's culture. And it exploded recently at Café Van Eyck.
Café Van Eyck is this upscale watering hole in Hilligersburg, a posh Rotterdam neighborhood, minor celebs, old money, and a brawl broke out with a cast that sounds completely fictional.
It really does.
You have Sylvia Geersen, a well-known model and reality TV star, there with her fiancé Pete. They get into it with Mike DeWee, a massive fraud suspect whose Ferrari was seized.
And Mike's girlfriend is the daughter of Henk ten Kate, a highly respected former coach for Ajax.
So reality TV royalty, a fraudster missing his Ferrari, and the daughter of sports elite. Things escalate, and then Dianco S. jumps in.
And Dianco's lineage is what matters here. He is the nephew of Dino Soerel, a legendary, incredibly violent underworld boss serving life.
So what does this all mean? You have fame, fraud, sports royalty, and mafia bloodlines all drinking in the same bar. But establishing the truth of what happened is impossible. The narratives are completely opposed.
Yeah, Sylvia claims she was brutally assaulted and threatened with a gun.
But Dianco's lawyer immediately countered, saying Sylvia and her fiancé were the aggressors and CCTV would prove it.
And here the truth completely fractures. The cafe owner says the CCTV shows nothing. Anonymous police sources say it shows plenty. Henk ten Kate publicly waves the incident away, but rumors say he's downplaying it to protect his daughter.
It's a mess.
This raises an important question, though. It mirrors where we started. In the AB and Emra murders, the system was paralyzed because scientific truth was missing.
The broken X-ray machine.
Exactly. But in this brightly lit cafe, truth isn't missing due to lack of science. It's being actively obscured by human nature, warped by fear of a mafia nephew, protecting celebrity reputations, and this messy social architecture.
We have covered incredible ground today. From a suspect using silence to outmaneuver an autopsy, to the agonizing law blocking a 1 in a billion DNA swab,
Right.
an aging mafia boss fighting to leave a cage, and a high society brawl where nobody agrees on what the camera filmed. The connecting thread is a justice system constantly wrestling and often failing to pin down the truth.
Because the law is an imperfect system designed by humans to judge human behavior. It's bound by technicalities.
Which leaves us with one final, incredibly provocative thought for you to mull over. The courts are tying themselves in knots over upgraded DNA testing today.
Terrified of endless state power.
Right. But think about the exponential trajectory of technology.
Yeah.
AI forensics, advanced biometrics, quantum data. What happens in 50 years?
The capabilities will be unrecognizable.
Exactly. What if every single past crime can be solved perfectly, retroactively, through tech we can't imagine yet? What if the X-ray machine never breaks again? Would a world with absolute perfect justice be a utopia? Or would that omnipotent state power break the very legal systems designed to protect our freedoms?
That is a terrifying question.
The water might finally clear up, but we might be terrified of what we see at the bottom. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep looking past the obvious, and we will see you next time.